Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful and, frankly, kind of radical idea about happiness. It totally challenges this myth that we've all been sold, the one that says happiness is something you have to find. But what if all the evidence points to something completely different? Okay, so let's just dive right into a puzzle that's been bugging researchers for years. We all have this script in our heads, right? You achieve a goal, you get the reward, and that reward is supposed to be happiness. But here's the thing, the data just doesn't back that up at all. I mean, just look at this disconnect. It's wild. On one side, you've got all the traditional markers of success that we're all told to strive for. And on the other, well, you've got circumstances we would all actively try to avoid. But here's the crazy part. When researchers actually looked at happiness levels, they didn't line up neatly with the success column. In fact, they found some surprisingly high levels of well-being on the avoid side. It really suggests we've been looking at this whole thing completely backwards. And that leads us right to the core idea of this whole explainer. It's a fundamental shift in how we see things. See, the reason all that data seems so contradictory is because our basic assumption is just plain wrong. We're out there searching for something that was never, ever meant to be found to begin with. Our culture pretty much programs us to see happiness as a destination, right? It's that big X that marks the spot on a treasure map. It's the prize you get at the very end of the quest. After you find the right job, the right partner, the right amount of money in the bank, we treat it like it's some object out there that we have to go get. But what if happiness isn't a treasure chest at all? What if it's more like, a city's power grid or its water system? Think about it. It's not some single shiny object. It's the underlying infrastructure that makes everything else work. And it's something that needs daily maintenance, daily construction. So here's the big reversal. We've had it completely backwards this whole time. We don't go out, achieve a great life, and then someone hands us a certificate of happiness. Nope, it's the other way around. It's the small, daily acts of building that actually produce happiness, almost like a side effect. It really is the process, not the prize. And the number one tool for this construction project, it's gratitude. But hold on, let's forget the scented candles and the fancy journals for just a second. At its absolute core, gratitude is a seriously powerful cognitive tool. I want you to think of it like a piece of software for your brain, one that actively trains you to focus your attention on what you have instead of what you're missing. It's basically about optimizing where you put your mental energy. Okay, so let's see how this actually works in the real world. It's one thing to talk about it like this, all abstractly, but it's something else entirely to see it in action, and in the most ordinary, everyday place you could possibly imagine. So I want to tell you this story about a woman named Monica. She worked in this huge office building, and every single morning during rush hour, the elevators were just completely jammed. It forced everyone to take the 7 flights of stairs. And as you can probably guess, most people absolutely hated it, but not Monica. Okay, so flash forward a few years. Her company goes through this incredibly stressful round of layoffs. And while everyone else is, completely consumed by anxiety, Monica, she's steady, just steady. So when someone asked her how she did it, this was her simple but really profound explanation. She said she didn't find happiness. She assembled it, piece by piece, every single day. And this just perfectly illustrates her whole process. That daily climb up the stairs, for her, it wasn't a chore. It was a construction site. On the 3rd floor landing, she would stop and notice the light. That's one small, simple brick of gratitude. On the 5th floor, she'd stretch and appreciate her body. That's another brick. So while everyone else was facing the same uncertainty, she had quietly built this structure of well-being that they just didn't have. And that is why her small habits were so incredibly powerful. See, one single moment of gratitude, just like one single brick, it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But 1,000 of them? Well, now you've built a fortress. It's like happiness follows the law of compound interest. All those small, consistent deposits end up creating a kind of wealth that those big, rare windfalls, they just can't touch. So the big question is, how do you actually start applying this? How do you make that shift from being a scavenger to being an architect of your own joy? Well, it turns out there's a pretty straightforward 4-step blueprint that we can all follow. All right, here we go. It starts with 4 simple steps. Step 1, shrink your time horizon. Just stop asking if you're happy with your entire life. That question is way too big. Instead, just ask, what's one thing right now that isn't broken? Step 2, attach this practice to a routine you already have. Make it as boring and repeatable as making your morning coffee.
Step 3, name the ordinary wins. I'm talking about the quiet meal, the commute where nothing went wrong, and finally, step 4, and this one is so important, you have to be patient.
And that last step, being patient, it's really all about trusting the process. Think about it. When you're building a house, you can't live in it while the frame is still going up. You've got to lay the foundation first, right? Well, that feeling of happiness we're all chasing, that's the roof. And the roof always goes on last. When you make this shift in your mindset, it totally transforms your whole experience of life. A scavenger hunt is just stressful. You're always looking for what's missing, and if one little clue is wrong, the whole thing feels like a failure. But a workshop? A workshop is a place where you build things. It doesn't require perfection. It just requires you to show up and work with the tools and materials you've actually got. And so that really leaves us with a final question to think about. Is your life a scavenger hunt, or is it a workshop? Are you spending your days searching for missing clues, just hoping that one day you'll finally find happiness? Or are you showing up each day ready to pick up your tools and actually build it for yourself? Because that choice, it turns out, is the foundation for everything else.